Did you ever think you could diversify into something in the Netherlands they call cow canoofling? Where you go and hug some cows?
I don't know what that is.
You let people hug your cows.
Hold on.
Hug. Hug your cows, yeah. It's a big thing in the Netherlands, you know
really?
that? Yeah. Just having people
that's new to me.
I'm not even pulling your chain on that one. No, that's you.
I'm waiting for the punchline.
No, it's a real thing.
I don't know about that.
Reservations are coming in.
Yeah, exactly. His phone is ringing off the hook.
We've covered alternative farming operations and farm access here on Flock, and some of the regenerative farming operations we have met with often cite Will Harris's White Oak Pastures in Bluffton, Georgia, as a working model for regenerative farming here in the States. So we decided to head to Atlanta and drive 2.5 hours south to pay Will, his family, and his team a visit, find out what they're up to, and discuss the real challenges and opportunities in replicating an operation like his. White Oak Pastures was generous enough to provide a discount code to all Flock viewers. So if you're curious about their offerings and interested in supporting regenerative agriculture here in the United States, then feel free to check their website out after the video.
This was one of the stores when I was a little boy. My mama used to shop here. There was Bluffton had probably, even when I was growing up in the 60s, born in 54, several stores that were still in business. This is one of the last ones that was operated. Mr. Herman Bass lived in that house right there, the second house.
The second house, so not the one that's kind of...
The tin roof.
Oh, the tin roof.
Not the green roof, but the tin.
Okay.
And he ran this store. And Mr. Herman was kind of not effeminate, but kind of a proper guy. Wore long sleeve white shirts all the time. And
walked around with a spoon up his ass.
Yeah, it was a spoon up his ass. And he would, and Mr. Greer Mansfield had a store right behind this one, and facing that way. And they were competitors. But Mr. Mansfield was a gregarious, relaxed, friendly kind of a person. Mr. Herman had the spoon up his ass. And my mama would always go in Mr. Mansfield's store first because he didn't care. And if she went in his store first, Mr. Bass would say, well, I see you went to Grez first. You must have not found what you wanted in there.
So they were true competitors. They had everything that kind of the same.
Well, almost exactly the same stuff. There was a store right over there that was more like a meat market. It had a little different stuff. And there was a 3-unit motor court right beside it.
Yeah.
So, and that was a service station, filling station.
And is this one of the first places that you renovated and revived?
It is.
Okay.
One of the first places, yes, in town. Yeah, absolutely. Got it. That's the eggs.
Yeah, you got your eggs.
We've been aggressively buying houses and lots and stores for 20 years, and pretty much bought all of them that sold in the last 20 years except one. One guy didn't like me. So
okay, so you did.
Yeah.
He's like, nah, I'm gonna
We
wait.
certainly don't own them all, but we own a number of them.
And the idea is to just basically slowly revive the town, or like use the infrastructure for commercial, residential homes?
It's to revive the town.
Yeah.
I really can see it happening. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. And it's a shame because little farming towns have been drying up in this country since World War II. And the more dedicated to agriculture the economy of the town was, the more effectively it was dried up. And this town was purely agriculture. Never had a railroad, never had a...
Maybe mining?
No mining, no, just purely agrarian economy. And I'll tell you this, so I was born in 1954, so the town was dry.
Same as my dad, actually. Yeah, same as my dad and my mom, so yeah.
So the town has actually been, and it started drying up in post-World War II. That's when that happened. So I've never seen the town do anything except this. And when I decided to change the way I farm, I was focused on the land and the animals. The town was never a consideration. It wasn't that I didn't care, it's just that I had no idea we could influence that.
I grew up in a small town, about a town of 3,000, and ours started to dry up in the 50s, but I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania, so it was a coal mining town. But there's always this expectation, if you were a young kid, that the whole brain drain, so a lot of the young people would just move out because there wasn't anything for young folks. So there is this unsaid, I guess, idea that like, wouldn't it be fanciful? Like, and we actually moved to a small town now, so I moved back to a 3,000 person town. Yeah. But that idea of like just slowly building, a place where people could come and work and want to work for a good portion of their lives.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen here. If our business survives, and we will talk a lot about that, it's pretty much going to happen.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, you're in Clay County, Georgia. Clay County, Georgia was the poorest county in the United States of America, not just Georgia, in 2020. I don't know about since then. I can't imagine it's gotten much better. We're the largest employer in the county. We got 170 employees. My payroll is $100,000 every Friday. And pretty much all of our liquidity goes to payroll. It's a very break-even-ish business.
Right, which some people would be like, that's crazy, because your return on investment, if they're just looking at it from a financial perspective.
I'm told that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I talk, I love, I'm not a trained business person, but I'm very interested in it, and I'm in business. I run a $20-something million a year business, and when I talk to bankers and accountants and those kinds of people, they shake their head, and that's fine. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But this is what we want to do. I am the fourth generation of my family to run this farm. I have two grown daughters who are married with children who are back helping run the farm, and their spouses work here.
And that says a lot too.
And they have those two children have 5 babies that are they will be if they stay here, they will be the sixth generation on the farm. So, and the fact that there's not a lot of money, that doesn't matter. There's a lot of wealth.
There's a lot of wealth. Yeah.
And I'll say this: we have a lot of equity in this farm. We could sell the farm and go to the beach and sit down for the rest of my life and probably my children's life, and maybe there. Depends on how much they piss it away, but but that's just not what we want to do. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, cash to me, I'm a bad cash manager. They stay on me. If we get an extra $100, I want to buy something. Not a car, or I want to buy a little piece of land.
Yeah, you're like in real estate market, but people understand that.
So,
but you're not flipping. You're not flipping.
Oh no, we don't. When we buy, we don't sell it. No, well, unless we had to.
Mm-hmm.
I know have sold any. But it's to me, I tell them, cash is like blood in your body. You got to have 5 pints or whatever you got to live. Why do you want another 5 pints to tote around in a bucket?
Well, and also if you look at it from this perspective, it's only going down in value.
Well, that's a good point.
You might as well buy what you can now.
Well, and that's not why I did it. But when I came to understand inflation, I said, "Oh hell yeah, this is good." I told you we got a lot of equity in the farm. We got debt too, and all that money that I borrowed, I invested in hard assets. And if you believe what the economists tell us, and I do, I'm paying that back with cheaper dollars than I borrowed.
That's right.
We got to survive, and we are surviving. I mean, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that are true in the marketplace that I don't like, that I'm troubled by. But I think that those things have more likelihood of getting better than getting worse.
Yeah. So. Well, I also think that during like COVID-19 and the pandemic or whatever, like you started to really see the communities that had, like we even saw it in our community, we have a big, we have one of the last millers in the area that do like all the grains and everything, and they usually do wholesale or they sell to other businesses and they don't usually retail, but they were able to swiftly turn for retail. But the fact that you had those people still in the area when the food system seemed to be going out of like crazy, but you're kind of creating a not only place for your family, but for your community that is resilient at the end of the day. The same thing with your farming.
I can't tell you anything. You got all my stories. That's exactly. What you said is exactly the way it is. And,
right.
When this farm's been, I'm the fourth generation of my family to run this farm, 150 something years. But I started the meat business. We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But when I did, I started it as a purely wholesale business. I sold Whole Foods Market and Publix, the first American grass-fed beef that they marketed as American grass-fed beef. And we ran it as a $20-something million wholesale business until the pandemic. And during the pandemic, very luckily, my daughter had started the online part of our business, and it lost its butt. I mean, it was not a good business. We'd sell $1 million, maybe $2 million worth of stuff a year, and it didn't cover the cost. The sale volume was not enough to cover the cost of being in that business. But the pandemic, it just sold out.
It spiked.
And this last year, this 2023, we actually sold more direct to consumers than we sold wholesale.
Well, in a way, the pandemic allowed you, like what you would normally maybe spend on marketing or whatever to get that customer in the door. The tragedy of the pandemic allowed more customers to probably get into the door, and then you're able to retain those customers.
Yeah, I made a mistake. We sold out during that panic, and I kept my wholesale business. I kept serving them because I thought I had to. I didn't. I wasn't under contract. But I thought that was my customers. And later on, Whole Foods Market dropped me, and I should have dropped them, but I didn't, and that was my mistake. And we still sell to public supermarkets.
Yeah. Well, we live and learn from our relationships.
We do. We do.
Should we head to the Jeep and we'll drive around? Sandra, do you want to ride in the back or the front? Does it matter? If I could ask from the back and.
Shotgun.
There's a shotgun. You are literally riding shotgun.
That's a rifle. That's the old Methodist church, which is our event center.
Oh, interesting. So it's not a church any longer.
No, they gave it up.
But
The Baptist church is still active.
oh, okay. I see that.
That was the old courthouse. It's my office. We'll go in there later.
So I mean, literally, the whole town hollowed out. Like you said, that's the old courthouse.
10 years ago, the only thing you could buy in Bluffton was a stamp. And
From the post office.
From the post office.
And that's governmentally run.
And it was open about 2 hours a day, and I never could catch them there. This is the only other business in town, and it's a peanut buying point. It belongs to a friend of mine. He is a super guy, and he does a great job, but this is a dying business.
Is it like a peanut cooperative where like all the peanuts come here and then he resells them? Or?
Well, it's not a cooperative. He owns it. My friend owns it. But see those little red trailers?
Yeah.
That's the way we used to harvest the peanut crop. And those they would hold about 4.5 tons, and you could only pull them about 35 miles an hour when they were loaded. So there had to be a lot of peanut buying points because they weren't very transportable.
I see.
And they put them on those semis, so you can put 24 tons and drive 65 miles an hour. So it's a dying business. The accounting and all the boring stuff, HR. I don't go in there unless I have to.
So your friend's going to run this peanut business for a while then?
So my friend has had this business. We got from his dad. He's a great operator.
Yeah.
But it's just a dying business. at this level. The peanut business at the big shell ADM's huge in it. This is the only other business in town besides ours.
You know, if you had your way, or you had you're sitting on that stack of hundreds, what other type of businesses do you see that could be really viable here?
I need to this is where I bring my feed in. I don't have a feed mill.
Okay.
Capital was unlimited. I would build a feed mill, grind my own feed for my pigs and poultry.
So you're trying to get as like vertically integrated as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I try to not hire anything done. We've got our own we have a three-person mechanic crew, a 3-person landscaping crew, a 3-person carpentry crew. I had a 3-person fencing crew. I sort of disbanded that because I hadn't been able to add any land lately.
I was going to say, send them up north. We could use a fencing crew. Keep the deer out, you know.
they wouldn't like it up there.
Yeah, I don't think
where
so.
all those cars are, that's a big house that I own, and it's our intern house. We have an intern program. We bring in 6 or 7 interns 4 times a year for 3 months.
Are they often from around the area or just all around?
No, never local. They're always.
How do people find out about you?
We don't advertise online. I mean, it's just we'll get 20 something applications every quarter. I mean, we'll take 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
So we just can't handle any more than that. We own these 3 houses here.
We're staying in the Post Oak house tonight. Where is that? Back there?
That's that
one.
Yeah, that's it right there.
That's the
Hope you like
one.
it. No, Post Oak is one about right there.
Oh, right there. Yeah. Okay. I'll say. Oh, so we're right next to the general store. Sonder, when you get the munchies, you can head over there.
I'm going to fix that.
I was going to ask, do you own that?
Yes.
I mean, and the pews too. The pews are right out there.
Well, we had a little demo there over the weekend.
What do you think that's going to be?
Actually, the guy that's coming here today, he's coming to talk about that. The guy's
the
meeting
lunch.
for lunch today.
Okay, that's great.
He is a blacksmith, and he makes knives, and he's a pretty crafty guy.
That's cool.
The guy that runs our meat plant lives here.
Well,
those are rabbits. We have
what are the animals that you raise now? I know it's beef. Do you do
cows, hogs, sheep, goats, rabbits, and poultry is kind of up in the air. I have raised until recently chickens, turkeys, geese, guineas, and ducks. We're doing a really big renovation project on our poultry plant.
Is it like really cost intensive for poultry?
Really what?
Cost intensive?
Yeah, we lose money in the poultry business.
Yeah, can you explain how that is? Because like a lot of people assume that chicken, it's like the super affordable meat, but it's actually really cost intensive to do it right, I guess.
Yeah. I'll answer that question, but let me tell you, while we're here, that's my mechanic shop there. I built the RV park to accommodate the solar builders that came in here, and they're finished, and we're about. So I was 100% occupancy. I'm going to do something. When I had the guy design that RV park, I knew I probably wasn't going to be in the RV business long term. That was to accommodate those solar workers. So we're going to put cabins. He engineered it or designed it so we could put cabins where the trailers sit, and it'll be employee housing. We have a pretty bad housing problem. I let the solar people use that as a
solar.
I let them use that as a lay down yard, and they hadn't moved their stuff yet.
Did they put in?
A little over 2,000.
Is it on your land though, or is it someone else's?
It's on their land.
Yeah.
The name of the company is Silicon Ranch. It's Shell's heavily invested in them, and this is my people here. They got hogs. They just loaded up in the woods out there.
What's really common in our area.
See the hogs on there?
Yeah. What's really common in our area with the solar farms is that they plant a very nutritious grass for the sheep, and then the sheep will mow under. Because we were looking for like maybe sheep or goats to clear our land initially in the beginning, but they're like, good luck, because there's all these long-term contracts for the sheep, and they're all, you know, buttoned up with the solar farms.
Well, we were one of the first people in the country to do that. We convinced Silicon Ranch to let us have the vegetation management contract, and we've been grazing it for about 5 years, and it's really good business.
Yeah.
Now, let me say this, this is not mine. The farm is about 5 miles along this road, and it's about a mile wide, but it does like this. But
you gotta take a look at the contrast.
There are chunks that are not mine, and this is one that's not. And it is. I like to think there's a lot of contrast here. This, of course, this little area here is not farmed. It's a little different ownership, but when you get back up here, you'll be back into it. You see it over there. So we're heading south on this highway, and it's towards the home place that my family's owned for 150-something years. About 25 years ago, I started buying land to the north, and it's so this is not mine. That is horribly eroded.
Yeah, I mean, look how exposed it is. I mean, typically, what would they do right now? Wouldn't you be planting like a cover crop or like?
They don't plant cover crop. It should have had a cover crop.
Right.
But they don't.
So they just leave it bare.
It's been laying there naked all year. This is mine starts here. And this is our meat plant, and we'll spend some time up here later. This is the first step I took 20 years ago to move outside just being a producer.
And that's one of the big bottlenecks that a lot of the meat farmers up in our area talk about. Sometimes they have to travel all the way to the Hudson to find somebody to process their meat.
You know, every farmer I know that wants to do this complains about that.
Yeah.
But you know, you can go to the bank and borrow the money and build one. That's what you can do. That's what I did.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a big gamble. It's a big, like if you don't have the customers.
All this is a big gamble.
Yeah, all of it is a big gamble, of course. But you know, you have to be willing to take the risk, and some people are a little less risk adverse, I guess, than others.
They need to go to work for somebody else. But this is, we're not going in there right now, but these are bulls that are being finished on grass that'll be slaughtered. These bulls were born and raised here on the farm. They are weaned at about 8 or 9 months of age and turned loose in here. There are different ages in here, and they're slaughtered at about 2 years of age. I actually don't know the birth date of any of these bulls.
Okay.
we slaughter them based on weight.
I see.
But it would be about 2, maybe 27, 8 months. And I used to castrate. I tell people that we used to castrate everything born on this farm that wasn't named Harris. And we, about 10 years ago, when I tell you about 10 years ago, that means I don't know when it was.
Yeah, you're like, it could be 20 years, it could be 40.
It could be 20. But about 10 years ago, Whole Foods, I was doing business with Whole Foods Market. They were my biggest customer. And they started the Global Animal Partnership, an animal welfare program. And and we were the first ones to go onto that program.
I remember they have levels. They probably still do,
exactly.
But they have levels, like 5 levels or something.
Yeah. Exactly, 5 levels.
Yeah, I remember
and to
that.
be a step 5,
there
was no physical alterations, and I was castrating all the male calves that were born here. So, You know, and we thought we were going to get a little more money if we were step 5. It didn't work out that way, but I decided I just would try to not castrate and see how that worked. And it worked fine.
Yeah. What was the benefit of you? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
And it worked fine. And I realized that I was raising better bulls than I was buying. And it just makes sense.
That's what I was going to ask.
It just makes sense because I was buying bulls from purebred breeders that had 100 cows. So they would have maybe 50 bulls, and they weren't going to sell the best ones. So I was selecting out of 40 animals. I had 700 or 800 mama cows. I was having 350 bull calves, and I could pick the very best ones out of those. So it wasn't that I had better genetics, as I had more to choose from.
Yeah.
But I ceased to castrate, and then when Whole Foods dropped me, I kept not castrating, and I like it.
And not castrating your bulls is something that is kind of required in the top, in the 5th level, or
Yeah,
okay.
to achieve level 5 is no physical alterations.
I see.
And being castrated is one hell of a physical alteration.
Yeah. I would imagine so.
So can you explain as well why they usually do that? Like, why is that a thing that's done?
Yeah. Why would they typically castrate?
So, if you are in the beef industry, the goal is to have prime or choice meat. And animals, males will achieve that level of finish better if they're castrated. If you castrate a guy, he's more likely to become a fat guy.
Okay, I see, because they want that fatty kind of
Correct.
like marbly kind of. But you can't achieve that.
In my situation, I can't achieve prime beef anyway because I don't feed them grain.
Right. Yeah.
Grain is super.
It's like a carb.
It's a super high carb.
Yeah.
It's like sugar.
Yeah. So that's what makes people puff up. You know what I mean? But the grass is very nutritious.
So I think my animals are way healthier, far healthier than a grain fed. I know they are. If these animals, if I just left them alone, they would live to be 24 years old. That's the life expectancy of a cow. If I had a feedlot, which I used to have, and was feeding them corn, high carb, no exercise, they probably wouldn't live to be much over the 2 years that they slaughter. Maybe 4, maybe 8, not 20 something.
Right. You know, I had friends who are gluten intolerant, or they had some issues with like whatever grains that they fed the cow, and they had to be careful about what they were eating, what the cow was finished on, because they could have some kind of allergic reaction. So they always had to make sure that if they were eating beef, it would have to be grass-fed.
Yeah,
and that's become a little bit more convoluted.
Yeah, that does surprise me.
Yeah.
We move these animals every day. This farm is 3,200 acres. It's divided up into about 150, 30-ish acre paddocks. This is one of the paddocks.
And so these guys will be in a different paddock tomorrow.
Tomorrow in a different paddock.
Okay. Well, should we see some more?
Sure. This is a tunnel under the road that we litigated against DOT. When they 4-laned this road, they were going to negate my opportunity to move cattle back and forth. And we move cattle back and forth all the time.
Oh,
just
wow.
Drove them across the road. So we asked them to put this in, and they wouldn't do it. So we persisted and eventually litigated. And before it went to trial, they did it for us.
Yeah, I'd imagine you have a lot of pressure from outside as like more and more people move in.
Hogs out here.
And these are those mobile? Like you can
Yes.
move those? Okay.
And we do move them.
Kind of looks like
sit
those
on
little
wheels.
mobile chicken things, but for
Well,
larger animals.
Yeah. These, all these pastures, all my pastures, 3,200 acres, are in warm season perennial grass. And when we overseed them every October, with a mixture of cool season annual grasses. And that allows us to have grazing here for about 10 months a year. You see, we move these enclosures. They used to be here, which is why there's no grass.
Right.
And they moved it here.
So how do you move? Like, do you move? Is this fence like movable? Like, how does it work?
You pull those posts up and move it.
Oh, that's,
well, no, this happens to be this one. This is permanent, but this is temporary.
Okay.
And they're both electrified, so
man, they are
it
just
happens to be up against this fence now. I mean,
Got it.
Little, see the babies over there?
Yeah. Oh man, look at them. And same with your beef cattle, are you selecting from your own hogs and sheep and goats?
We don't buy breeding stock, we select.
So you had started the meat part of the farm. What was this farm prior to this? Because I know it wasn't a regenerative farm. That was an inflection point that you did. So
I guess pretty much all farms were what we would today call regenerative prior to World War II. World War II was a game changer, and my dad took over the farm after World War II and turned it into a monocultural cattle operation, very industrial cattle operation. And he was really proud of that and pleased at that because it allowed him to be an expert cattleman. He was a really good cattleman, whereas his dad and granddad had farmed a lot of different species. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So he ran the farm as a monocultural cattle operation, and he was successful. He was profitable. He bought more land, paid for it, did a good job. And I never, growing up, wanted to do anything except run that cattle operation. And I wanted to be a monocultural cattle operation just like my dad ran. I loved it. And went to the University of Georgia, majored in animal science, and came back and ran it as a monocultural cattle farm, and I made money. I ran it that way for 20 years.
Yeah, was it subsidized by the government?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, all farms are subsidized by the government.
Yeah.
It was not a huge part of my profitability, but yes, we took government payments. But it was profitable, and I loved it and enjoyed it until I didn't. And 20 years in, I became more and more dissatisfied with it for a number of reasons. So I started moving away from it. And when I started moving away from it, I did not realize, first, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want to do that anymore.
You wanted to stay in Bluffton, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
And I want to stay on the farm. I just didn't want to run it as a monocultural cattle operation.
But what was it? Like, was it the town that was in decay? Was it just
No. It was, it started out animal welfare. What I had always believed was really good animal welfare, I fairly quickly, realized, this is not good animal welfare. I thought it was, but it's not. We can talk more about that definition in a minute, but, and then very quickly, the land management occurred to me. It occurred to me that it was wrong as the animal welfare. Both of them were really, really bad, but I thought they were both fine. And when I realized they were really bad, I didn't want to do it anymore, so I started moving away from it. And in retrospect, it was pretty stupid because I was changing a profitable operation into something that was not profitable and didn't really know where I was going. I just knew I didn't want to do that anymore. And I was spoiled. I'd always made money. I had no debt. We weren't rich people, but we lived very comfortably.
You had the land,
Had the land, it was paid for. And I just thought it'd be okay. I thought I don't want to do that anymore, so I'll do something different and it'll be fine. But it wasn't fine. It was very financially difficult. And I would have gone broke if things hadn't changed. It just coincidentally, not good timing on my part. I wish I could say I saw it coming and I was brilliant. That's not what happened. But the grass-fed beef movement started while I happened to be raising grass-fed beef, and so again, I was able to sell Whole Foods Market and Publix the first pound of American grass-fed beef that they sold.
But how was that transition? Because it's not like I'm this one day and then boom, I'm that the next day.
Just describe as well what it used to look like.
Well, it kind of looked like probably some of that other stuff that we saw coming down the road, bare and completely unplanted. I heard crickets in there right there.
State your question.
It's not like you go from that bare earth and then all of a sudden you're grass. Like, what was that transition? How did you do it? How did you go about doing it?
When I started the transition, it was mostly giving up stuff.
Giving up fertilizer or stuff like that. Okay.
I quit using fertilizer. I quit using subtherapeutic antibiotics. I quit using hormone plants. I quit using pesticides. I ceased to use things fairly abruptly. I'm not saying all in one day, but pretty quick. I didn't keep good records of when I quit what, but I was giving up stuff. When I did, everything changed.
Like the land came back and everything?
No.
How did it go?
It was not like that. It was the opposite. It looked like hell.
Oh, shit, okay.
All kind of stuff grew up that I didn't want to grow up, and nothing was growing as well as it should have. The soil was dead. I did not think or know to check it at the time, but I've checked soil adjoining farms that was in the same shape now mine was in then, and it's less than 0.5% organic matter. 0.5% organic matter.
Nothing.
Yeah. A parking lot, dirt parking lot is 0.5% organic matter. That's just what you wind up with.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you more about that. But today, this land right here is over 5% organic matter. That's 10x, right? Half to 5. 10x more organic matter. All right, 1% organic matter in the soil, that's the moisture absorption. 1% will hold a 1-inch rainfall, which is 27,000 gallons of water per acre. So my land will absorb a 5-inch rainfall. Now, not if it comes in 30 minutes, but if it comes in over a few days. So it'll absorb that. And then I don't have irrigation, except 2 exceptions I'll tell you about later. But I don't have irrigation. This is not irrigated, but look how good it looks.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's because the land absorbs the water. We get 52 inches of rain a year on the average. So we shouldn't need much irrigation in general. Sometimes it gets a little dry, but it's not. We can talk on and on about it, but it's just and the organic matter isn't all there is to it. It's just a good indicator. We're talking about the life in the soil, the microbial life in the soil.
Yeah, you're like a farmer of microbial life at the end of the day.
This is what we're really growing.
Yeah.
And it's all linked. It's all, the industrial model that I used to be part of is so linear. It's like a factory. It's this model after factories.
Yeah, like an efficiency system.
This is not linear. This is very cyclical.
But I don't understand, that industry is so subsidized. Like in our area, a lot of people are doing hay, corn, soy, and they're getting subsidized by the government. I wonder if you take the subsidies out of that, and we went through this thing with Russia and the fertilizer is not able to come into the United States, and then the costs go up. Like, if you pulled that teat out of some of those conventional farmers' mouths, would they be able to still make it?
No, not here. I don't know about your farmers, but here, without the subsidies, my friends and neighbors and relatives could not farm. It's as simple as that.
And I think it's silly. It's like as if you wanted to start a business and your parents kept propping you up, but you were not able to make your own living. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's fake. It's it's fictitious.
No, everything we said, I stand by. But these farmers are not making a lot of money, even with the subsidies. I mean, they are subsidized, and that serves to keep them going. And they're not getting a good return on their investment.
I mean, farming is a hard business. I mean, I think that's why a lot of people romanticize about it. But I'm sure you're out here every day, and you're dreaming it, living it, breathing it, sleeping it. And my dad's retired. He's your age. You're not.
No.
You have no. It's a lifestyle.
I'll never retire. As long as I'm physically and mentally able to do it, because this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Right. Talking about the organic matter here, and then having your cows doing that transition, you just had cows at that point. What were some of the strategies you started to do as you were taking the fertilizer out, you're stopping the hormone therapies, and it looked like trash? What was that turning point for you when you said, okay, now it's starting to look good? Like, what were some of those techniques that you were using that helped you transition to that moment?
Well, first of all, I found I had to add other species. When I had cattle, I wanted nothing to grow but Tifton 85 Bermuda grass. And if you were a plant in my pasture and you weren't Tifton 85 Bermuda grass, I would spray you with a chemical, and it would an insecticide if you were an insect, or herbicide if you were a plant, or a fungicide if you were a fungus. But I was using all those tools to protect my monoculture of Tifton 85 Bermuda grass, so that my monoculture of cattle could harvest it. And Tifton 85 Bermuda grass, this whole farm was in Tifton 85 Bermuda grass. There is not any here anymore. I quit putting 200 or 300 pounds of nitrogen per acre per year. The Tifton 85 Bermuda grass wasn't going to be here anymore. But other species came. Of course, these other species are far more hardy and have advantages and don't require that expensive nitrogen, although you can actually get more forage out of the Bermuda grass. That's why we did it.
But they don't benefit from having like the radish and this grass and this clover. I mean, that's a much more varied diet at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, the animals are better off.
Yeah. So that's what started to come. So naturally, you didn't even have to seed anything. Naturally, just other things started to seed in there into the pastures. And then all of a sudden you had this mix of like a dozen or so different types of species in here.
I have added seed.
Okay, so you had to enrichment plant essentially.
Well, all this, what you see of this green and pretty now, I seeded. It's cool season annuals. In the summertime, this pasture's covered with warm season perennials. By the way, Tifton 85 is a warm season perennial.
I see. So you said you started to diversify. You had cattle. When did you start kind of shifting them and it occurring to you like, oh, I have to kind of move them from paddock to paddock? And when did you start bringing in the diversified grazers?
The diversified grazers I brought in when I had plant species germinating that I didn't put there, that the cows didn't want to eat. Sheep will eat more forb-like plants, preferentially. Goats will eat even more woody plants. And hogs have a role in turning up the land, the way they've done here, the way they're going to do over there.
Yeah, they like to root and roll.
Poultry has a role in adding nitrogen, particularly to the soil, through feces. So all these species live in symbiotic relationships with each other, and it requires a certain amount of management to keep everybody where they're supposed to be and not. If you left these hogs here for a long period of time, they would decimate this land.
Yeah.
It would just be a dead mineral medium. You got to keep them moving. You keep them there the right period of time, and it'll come back better than it was.
So the cows you move every day. Do you move the pigs every day? No.
We move the pigs as needed.
As needed. And how about the sheep, the goats? How do you manage those?
Sheep and goats are moved every day.
Every day.
Hogs are moved as needed. Poultry is moved as needed. Farm is divided up into 150, 30-ish acre paddocks.
Okay.
And the cow will move to a different paddock every day.
And I just didn't know whether, like, then you say, okay, that needs a little bit more nitrogen on this land, so I'm going to move my chickens over here.
That's exactly what I do.
Okay, so that's what you do.
But
okay.
not on a daily basis.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was, like, if you had, like, an overall...
When these hogs get through working this part of the farm, before they get through, I would have made up my mind that this other part of the farm, maybe 4 miles away, needs hogs.
So you're doing that by eye, or you're not, or do you have a map and you're like, this is this and this is that? Like, that's what I'm kind of trying to understand.
Both.
Both. Okay.
I got a map.
Okay.
I look at it a lot. On the wall in my office, I'll show it to you. But you got to come out there and look and walk and,
right.
and
see what does it need. Yeah. So that's kind of what you're doing. And that,
I can't use that map to know what it needs. I use the map to show people where they are or where they need to go. Put them here. You know.
See, and that's interesting because you're using you're using your farmer senses. It's like the qualitative assessment of your land of like, this is what it needs. And there's no guarantee that once this set of animals moves off, that this set of animals needs to move in.
Situational.
The situation, it's completely situational. The weather, everything, you know.
It's completely situational. Yeah. That thistle that we looked at on the way in.
Yeah, this one right here with the white leaves. Yeah,
that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And I got to figure out what to do about that. But where it's thick, we're gonna mow it. I don't mow much. We're gonna mow that.
Yeah, keep it down.
So what made you do? So the hogs just came off this part of the land. What made you decide that it was time for them to move on?
Bare ground. Too much.
Okay.
Just.
And then what are some of the next steps for this land in order to get it back to a place where you'd like it to be?
It'll happen. I mean, it'll happen. See, all
so
that.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll mow where that invasive weed is, and that's unusual. It's not remarkable, but it's unusual. We don't have to do that a lot. We do that. This needs doing. And
yeah. I can appreciate that. Well, that's interesting. So that now. When did you start saying this is regenerative? Because that word didn't wasn't in people's lexicon.
Yeah, well, I didn't come up with that word.
Yeah.
It was what's it been? Organic, and that got bastardized. Then natural, and that got bastardized.
I mean, is grass-fed? Grass-fed is pretty bad.
Grass-fed is probably. I don't know any word that any of us. I'm not a wordsmith. Any word any of them come up with
sustainable, and it gets hijacked.
Then the big food, big ag, big. They have brilliant people hired to come up with words or take words away from, so that you can't stay ahead of that. and I don't try.
Yeah.
I do refer to this as regenerative because if I got to tell you what I do and I don't want to talk to you an hour, I can just give that to you. You know.
Right, and I guess some folks will use the word regenerative quite broadly. Do you see that you could do this? You can't do this without animals.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
I mean, that's ludicrous. This is biomimicry. This is the emulation of nature. Can you think of a ecosystem that doesn't have animals in it?
No, that would be one that I would not want to live in.
No, I mean, an ecosystem is plants and animals and microbes living in symbiotic relationships with each other. And they're very different. And you don't have to go from here to the mountains to the desert to be in different systems. It can be 15 miles over there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's just, ecosystems are highly varied, and what's in them is varied. Don't be confused. They are the cycles of nature, and they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're universal. You know, the energy cycle, the water cycle, the mineral cycle, the microbial cycle, many others. All the cycles of nature, and all those cycles of nature, when they're operating optimally, yield an abundance that's spun off, and that's the wealth. All the wealth in the world is the abundance of nature, and it's incredible. You know, you think about all the oil and gas and coal in the ground. That was the abundance of nature during the era of the dinosaur. I mean, just incredible bounty that came off that we've been living on the last 100-something years. But what we do here is try to optimize this bounty of nature. Use these natural cycles, natural systems, plants, animals, microbes, to generate an abundance, and that abundance we market as grass-fed beef and pork and lamb, and sell it, and that's the wealth that we live on.
Yeah, if you think about the benefits, if you look at it from just maybe let's say a transactional point of view, which you're not, but you have your mowers of earth, you have your turners of earth, you have your nitrogen fixers of earth. Like, that's what these animals are providing.
It's a functionality.
They're pooping, they're peeing, they're providing the fertilizer, they're turning up the earth, they're leaving some ground bare so some other, species can move in. They're mowing your lawn so you don't have to mow too much. That's part of what this cycle is.
And here's what's important: it's perpetual. The land and the herd are perpetual.
So for this is also you're finishing the sheep for meat then.
Correct.
As well.
That is a non-native invasive. It's fire ants. Watch this. Watch this. Watch them.
This is the one that they thought you actually stepped on. Yeah.
And and everybody hates them but me. And I don't like to get them on me, but they will eat you up.
Yeah.
But if I took an 8-foot strand of that wire, I could push it down into the ground 8 feet deep. They loosen the land.
Yeah, they're good aerators.
It's like a pathway for water.
Right.
So they're really good, and they don't. You can see they don't adversely affect the plants.
No. When you started to work with the sheep, did you already have markets for these animals? Like, did you have to say, okay, I'm going to get the animals now because I have a market? Or did you just say, let me get them and then I will find the market?
Well, I said, I need the animal. I have a need for the animal.
I see.
And then we had to look for a market. So
how does your business run now? Is it mostly online retail and, here?
This good question. The year that just ended is the first year that we've ever had more, over 50% of our volume was direct to consumer online.
Talk about how important, I don't know how you ship, if it's FedEx or whatever, but you wouldn't have been able to do that if there wasn't shipping routes, I guess, right? Because you have to get your fresh meat delivered to one's door and stuff.
Yeah, and it's not, and I'll say this, we do sell over half our product online. It's delivered by FedEx or UPS. FedEx and UPS were not created to be meat purveyors. They were books and shirts and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's not a best case deal. And we ship to 48 states, and we don't want to. I want to ship here. You know, I can't sell $28 million worth of product in Bluffton, Georgia to 100 people. But, you know, there's Atlanta's 4 hours that way. You know, Orlando's 4 hours that way. Birmingham's 4 hours that way. There's enough people here to eat what I produce. And I don't want to compete with farmers in California. I mean, I don't want to be in business there, but I want them to be able to be in business there.
Yeah, it's about like really replicating this model because
Highly replicatable, not highly scalable.
Exactly, because in the U.S. it's just like even, you know, I was in business and always the venture capitalists would be like, okay, but how are you going to scale this business? Yeah. That's the number one question that they would ask.
This business has already been scaled.
Yeah.
ADM, Cargill, JBS. You know, I'm not.
And you don't want to be that. That's not what this is. Yeah. So it's about basically inspiring others to be like, look, you know, this is it, but this would be it for your town. And
well, I hope it inspires others. I had to quit. There was a time that if a farmer showed me a little interest in this, I'd say, let me tell you what you ought to do. And I had to quit that because people would go broke.
Right.
I would have gone broke had my timing not been what it was, what fortunate as it was. And you know, I got to be careful about saying, let me tell you what you ought to do. So,
well, how come you venture, you know, there are farms around here that aren't doing what you're doing, and obviously their land looks really different, and you have a model that you've done. Why do you think it's, and they own the land maybe, I would guess, I would venture that some of them, that land has been in their families for a while, so they don't have the cost of like buying new land in order to do this. Why haven't they wanted to make any of that transition, you think?
Those guys may be doing better than me. I'm not sure that economically this is a superior model for those people. They're not making a lot of money, but I'm not either. We already talked about that. And I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm glad I do it, and it's fine. But you would not want to lift this up as a stellar return on investment. It's not.
But they don't see, I mean, those people live in the town. They probably stop at your general store. Their benefits, they must see the benefits of the town coming back, and they must enjoy some of those benefits. I'm not saying, is that enough to encourage them to be like, yeah, maybe he's gotten something, even if they might be making a little bit more ounce.
Let's be clear. These farmers that are farming industrially here are good people. They're not evil people. They're not stupid people. They're good people, and they're farming the way their dad and their granddad farmed. And they're making a living. They're not doing real well, but I'm not either. And it's very for them to convert from what they're doing that's working and it's been working for a couple of generations to this, which may not work. You know, mine worked again because of timing
And bullishness, probably too. Bullishness.
Well, I mean, you're gonna have to be. There's got to be some of that, no matter what business you pursue. If you're in business for yourself, so I used to. I mean, I wasn't out in the road trying to sell it. I never did that. But if somebody came here, I would show them the benefits of doing what we did. And I felt really good about it until I didn't feel good about it anymore.
How do you feel, though, about getting lumped into the conversation of, like, farming bad, especially if you look at it from the standpoint of, like, how people have pigeonholed greenhouse gas emissions? Because I know that there has been some interesting third-party research that has come onto your land to focus kind of largely on that. So how do you feel about getting, like, lumped into that category of, like, you know, farms? What would you say to those folks who are like, farming all bad? How would you respond to that? And how what is some of that research that has come out on your land in this way of farming?
Yeah, well, I'm not I'm not in the business of moving public opinion. You know, I mean, if someone ask my opinion, I'll give it to them. If someone wants to come here and do what you're doing, I'm happy to accommodate it. But I'm not going to get in the road and go out and try to change minds. I have been to D.C. several times in my life. I'm not going back because it's a waste of time. And the last time I went, I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. The study that you mentioned, I had a customer that was a good customer, very small customer, and they sold their business to General Mills. And when General Mills bought my friend's meat business, I thought I probably wouldn't do any more business with them, and it was okay because they weren't that big an account. But General Mills wanted to keep buying from me. I've ceased since, but they bought for a long time. And they had some concerns about some of the claims that my friend was making about being regenerative and those kind of things. So they offered to pay for a LCA, life cycle assessment. I'd never heard of that. I didn't know what that was. It was a very expensive, I think it's $80,000 just for the third party. $80,000 study that a company called Qantas from Minneapolis, Minnesota came down and did here. And we cooperated with them. And what they determined is that my cattle operation actually sequesters more carbon than it emits. All this talk about cattle and flatulence and climate change is just wrong. Now, if it's confinement cattle, that's a different deal. But cattle raised like those is actually contributes to the mitigation of climate change. We sequester more carbon than we put up. And that surprised me not a bit. I told you that this land has gone from a 0.5% organic matter to 5% organic matter, 10x increase. I didn't put any carbon out there. All that carbon increase, 10x increase, happened through photosynthesis and that cow, mostly cattle, assimilating these grasses, turning it into feces, microbial assimilation of the feces. It's what's supposed to happen. Those deep soils that used to be in the Midwest, 6 foot deep topsoil, was the buffalo herds and other ruminants created that.
Right.
And it surprised me not in the least. I didn't know what the numbers were, but the results was absolutely didn't lift an eyebrow.
Yeah. I mean, that just goes to show you that you could see it with your own eyes. But having that, even though that was costly, and you probably wouldn't have wanted to pay for that
couldn't have.
part of the bill, yeah. At least you have that information now, because that is, a lot of this is also translating this into the language that other people speak. You know, they might need to see those numbers, especially if they're not here to the farm and kind of like, they might know what they might not even know what they're looking at. They might not even know that that's clover. You know what I mean? So,
I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. I'm just not. But there's no doubt in my mind that this widely accepted misunderstanding that cattle are destroying the environment, that's intentionally done. There are people that, for a number of reasons, don't want there to be animal agriculture, and especially cattle. And and maybe it's the people that are making beef, vegetarian beef. I don't know. I don't know who it is, but there are people that have a prejudice against it, and they have taken facts and twisted them to villainize cattle. And cattle are part of the solution. Look at that compared to my neighbors up there.
right.
And the difference is animal impact.
Right. Well, I can imagine, again, not being a conspiracy theorist, but like if there's ways that you could control people, the food system would be one way to control. because if you are not empowered to be able to grow your own food, and you want to turn against the people who are producing the food, that would be one way to kind of do it.
Well, and there's just so much money in it. I mean, there's so much money. We farmers today misuse and abuse. Let's just talk about pesticides. We just talk about pesticides. We talk about a lot of things. Just pesticides. The first people that took World War II chemistry and adapted it to controlling a pest. Those weren't bad people that were trying to destroy the planet. They just figured something out. And sadly, there were unintended consequences to doing that. And sadly, those unintended consequences had a long lag time. Like you didn't see it. You saw the benefit now, and you didn't see the unintended negative consequence for many years. So we use more and more and more of it. And today, when I was a very industrial farmer, I went out every day, literally, and looked for something to kill. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
Pesticide.
Yeah.
Side means kill. Homicide.
Yeah.
Pesticide.
Genocide,
fungicide,
biocide.
insecticide.
Yeah.
Side means kill. And when I was an industrial farmer, I was in the business of looking for something to kill. I was looking for something that would disrupt the monocultures that I endeavored to have.
Which is so strange.
When I would use a poison, a side, it would do exactly what I wanted done, but it would also kill some more stuff. I mean, nothing just gets one very narrow segment of the living animals, plants, nutrients out there. So it would throw something else out of balance, so I would need another side. And it would do exactly what I wanted done, but it would do some other things. So I need another one and another one. And a farmer winds up in a situation where every single day he's looking for something that will achieve a desired effect, but it causes another undesired effect that requires another application of something. So it's and you don't realize that. I didn't realize it. I did it for 20 years, and I was good at it, and felt good about it. The whole farm's about 5,000 acres.
5,000. And how much did your dad have when he handed it over to you?
About 1,000.
Okay, so
I don't own all that. I own about 2,000.
Okay.
I bought about 1,000. I inherited 1,000. I bought about 1,000. I lease about 1,000. Then we've got about 2,000 solar grazing.
And that lease that you're doing is pasturing your animals. It's all for pasture.
Correct.
Yeah. How would you have done this, or how would you think through this if you hadn't owned or hadn't been inherited some of that land to begin with?
No, I never could have done it.
You couldn't have done it.
No.
Because you just couldn't have taken the risk. You would have had to buy the land and.
Well, I couldn't have gotten financing.
Right, because you didn't have anything then.
Yeah.
So you needed to when you got financing, you had to put something up for it.
I had to put everything I had up for it.
Yeah. So what would I'm sure you get this question a lot, but when you have like a young person who's like looking to get into farming, maybe they have land, maybe they don't. What would your approach be?
Well, I mean, the fact is, a young person who doesn't have anything can't buy land. I mean, you can't afford it. It would be financially impossible, I think.
Yeah.
For a young person who didn't have anything to be able to leverage land and buy land and start a farm from scratch. I don't see how that could happen. Now, there are other arrangements could be made. A young person who didn't have any land could go to work for some older person who was looking for a retirement path, and then some deal could be worked out. I don't know what it looked like, but as far as just graduating from the orphanage and going to the bank and saying I want to buy that 100 acres of land economic impossibility.
Yeah. Are you satisfied with the impact that you've made and are making here in Bluffton? And how do you think you could have been satisfied with just that 1,000 acres that you were doing? Like, would that have been impact enough, or am I saying like clearly not, because you're always, like you said, you're always looking for more land to buy and all that other
Well, that's a hard question to answer. So, in the first place, I probably made a mistake when I transitioned from farming industrially to this. And the mistake I made is I was operating on over 1,000 acres of land then, and it never occurred to me to turn some land loose. You know, I had just always been of the mindset of grow, 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 like most business people. So in my mind, I had to find a way of monetizing my land non-industrially, and I never thought about cutting back. I wasn't growing, but, so I figured it out. And then when I built the processing plant, it caused me to have a greater need for volume. You know, I was operating on 1,500 acres of land, whatever it was that day. I couldn't raise enough cattle to operate a processing plant. So when I built the plant, I built it as small as I could build it, but I still needed a lot more throughput. So I had to start growing. And we did that through land acquisition, buying land during the good years, and then leasing land after that. And we still need more acres to raise enough cattle to operate the plants.
Right.
It's my hope that everybody that decides to transition over to this kind of farming won't have to build a processing plant. That's a really big, hard, expensive step, and I hope most people won't have to do that. You know, I've owned a processing plant for 20 years that I built from the ground up, literally, but I don't enjoy it. It's my least favorite part of what we do here, and you know, I have to be involved in the operation. I don't run it. I got some people that work for me that run it, and they know a lot more about it than I do, but it's my least favorite part of the business.
Are you processing anyone else's meat other than what you're doing here? Like, have anybody approached you?
I'm not.
Okay.
I buy some animals from other people, but I process it for myself.
Okay. Would you ever do that? If somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I want to process my..."
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And I don't, and I don't want to. Mostly, and this has to do with my own preference, I don't want to talk to people that much.
I see.
If a guy or gal wants to bring you a cow to process, you got to talk to them about it 8 times, and I don't want to do that. I'd rather just buy it one time than I do it like I want to.
So even though you need more land and more cattle to process through that to, I guess, probably pay back the loan.
Literally.
Yeah, you'd rather just grow more slowly than have to deal with like 8.
And that's a personal preference.
Yeah.
I mean, I have friends that do a lot of custom processing, and they seem to be happy with it. And I don't think it's terrible. I just prefer not to do it.
Yeah.
And I would do it if I had to.
We are standing in front of our red meat processing plant, which is right next door to our meat cutting facility. We built this building in the fall of 2007, completed in the summer of 2008, and it was to solve one problem, and that was the bottleneck of processing in this good food movement. You know, there were lots of farmers who had livestock and lots of consumer demand, but there's this middle piece. You know, consumers don't buy cattle and hogs and sheep, they buy beef and pork and lamb. And so for us, in order to be successful, we had to eliminate that. We utilized processing off the farm for a couple of years, and while it worked, it didn't give us the ability to scale to the level that we needed to operate in order to turn this into what Dad's vision was.
Why are there so many, why is there a lack, I would say, of processing facilities? Why is that the bottleneck?
So post World War II, the mentality was get big or get out, and they were very successful. Meat today is very centralized, it's very commoditized, it's very industrialized, and as a result, the cost to operate those big behemoth facilities certainly outpaces the cost to operate these very small artisan craft facilities. So, with regard to scale, we process about 25 head of cattle 5 days a week. A industrial meat packing plant will process over 400 head of cattle an hour. So when we start talking about the economics,
Right.
It's a lot more expensive per head to run a facility like this than it is a packing facility. The building was actually built to process 50 a week.
Oh, I can.
And when we got to that point, we were still hemorrhaging money. It was just no end of profitability in sight.
Right.
So with a few little modifications, primarily with refrigeration, we doubled our capacity. So instead of processing 50 a week, it became 100 a week. And since then, we found other efficiencies that we've been able to implement. So I would say that we're operating not quite at capacity. There's still a little more wiggle room there. But the addition of this facility, which was our poultry processing plant, has helped us grow through some of those challenges.
Okay, so you said it was your poultry processing plant. Is it now processing beef as well?
So in 2010, we built the building next door because we had found success with the grass-fed beef movement that we thought, the same people who were buying grass-fed beef would love pastured poultry. And while that's true, the cost discrepancy between commodity poultry and pastured poultry was so large that we weren't able to move the volume of birds that we needed to make that facility work.
Right, so people have this idea that they will pay premium for the grass-fed beef, but the premium for a pasture-raised chicken is too extraordinary.
Well, it is somewhat out of reach.
Yeah.
The premium from commodity to grass-fed beef is 20, 30, 40, 50% more. Pastured poultry is like 300% more. So it comes down to just an economics thing. It's not that they're not as passionate about the product. It's just, unfortunately so expensive, it's just not feasible.
So are you kind of just not doing that anymore? Do you have the chickens and ducks and everything more to fulfill the ecological life cycle versus then actually producing them for food for other people?
That's right.
Okay.
So we paused our poultry program. We've still got a few chickens. We collect eggs from them and sell them in the general store. But this facility has now been repurposed for more value addition with grass-fed beef. So we're now cutting more steaks and roast and grinding more beef and getting it more ready for end consumer use, which has been helpful for us.
Yeah. I mean, this is fascinating because I knew this was a really big struggle to have to come to terms hey, I'm going to take out a loan to do this.
It was definitely the necessary ingredient for us to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish, but we didn't aspire to be meat processors.
It's his least favorite part of the business.
It is.
Yeah.
There are nuances here that we just hadn't figured out. It took us 150 something years to figure out how to raise animals, and we're only in year 15 on processing, so we're still kind of figuring it out. But if there's an old Southern saying that there's 100 ways to skin a cat. Well, if there's 100 ways to skin a cat, there's 1,000 ways to cut up a cow. And so how you meet consumer demand, how you extract the amount of money that you need to continue, and how all those things play together, both retail and wholesale, it's just a level of business management that we didn't necessarily intend on biting off.
How did you find skilled people to work in the facility? Because this is I was sharing with your father, it's kind of like a lost art, some of this, and it's not necessarily a job that everybody would love to take. Where did you find some of that skill, and how did you transfer some of that skill to other people who wanted to learn?
So it would probably come at no surprise to you that there aren't very many people in Southwest Georgia who know how to break down a cow nose to tail. So we did it the good old-fashioned way. It was on-the-job training. So the people here, very few of them came in as skilled butchers, but all of them came in, as people who needed a job. And this is a pretty good economic opportunity, and so they were willing to learn how to do those things to be relevant in this system. Yeah. So, you know, we need more skilled butchers today, but we can't hire skilled butchers in this area.
Yeah.
We have to train them.
Yeah. What's next for White Oak Pastures? What would you like to see in the next like 5 years?
You know, I'm 69 years old, and I don't ever plan to retire, and I think I'm in pretty good health. So I'll work every day, but I'm at the point now that my children and other young people in the company need to decide what's next. And we have different ideas on that. You know, I love this, and I would probably, and because I love this, I'd probably just keep adding to that. I think they're fine with this, but it's not, they don't have the passion for it that I do. So they are, you know, the things like the restaurant and the lodging and the that guy that we ate lunch with, I'm probably going to let him put a blacksmith shop in one of my buildings. And ooh, that's pretty good.
That's a good gust of wind that came through.
Must be March. So you know, they will take it in a different direction. If I had 30, 40 years in front of me, I'd probably just have more and more cows because it's what I enjoy most.
Yeah.
It's not because it's the most profitable. It's just what I like.
Yeah.
You know? In the afternoon when I drink a glass of wine, I come here and drink it. Welcome to the part of the farm that I know the least about. This is our organic vegetable garden. It's the only part of the farm that I maintain organic certification on.
Oh, really?
I could certify it all, but I really have a problem with the organic certification program. They, you know, in this country, you can grow vegetables in a dark house in water.
Yeah.
So no sun, no soil, but it's certified organic legally.
That's strange.
That's
especially because like you think about like the practices are also growing.
Like this.
Yeah.
So
So what do you grow? What kind of vegetables do you grow?
We grow just about everything that you can grow in South Georgia, from tomatoes to peas to butter beans to okra, all kind of things. Potatoes.
Is this to market like just at the store or?
Yeah, we market it at the store. We sell a little bit online, and then we've got a canning operation, jelly and canned vegetables and those kind of things.
This is a lot what a lot of farmers aspire to, because you are really not just a farmer, you're creating higher value product. And that I think is like really key in being able to increase your margins essentially, because otherwise you're just selling in your product as like a raw material.
And the other good thing about vegetables is it's just the lowest capital way of getting in the farming business. You know, when a cow has a calf, well, it takes, from the day you breed a cow, it's 283 days before she calves. There's 2 more years before you've got something marketable.
Right.
You can plant a seed, and 90 days later, you got something to sell.
Yeah.
So this is a great way for people to get into farming. And in fact, I kind of got a little embarrassed. We used to go to farmers markets. We would send the people that grow these vegetables to farmers markets. And I realized that we were getting a bad reputation because we were there competing with young folks that were just trying to sell vegetables.
I see.
So when I realized, I quit.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, you know, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we still have the garden. It's small, about 4 acres, but we just raise it for ourselves and what we sell our customers, what we cook with in our restaurant.
Yeah. And I liked, actually, I noticed that sign on the general store where it said it takes 238 days, something, you know, something like that, and then we're not going to screw up your burger, so like you could wait.
No rushes.
Yeah, no rush to eat the burger. So I think that's important for people to really comprehend.
Yeah.
I asked Will if he could show us his composting operation, which may not be the most glamorous part of the farming business, but is integral in continuing that cycle of soil health.
This is one heck of a composting operation you got here.
I think there's about 7,000 tons out here. And I think it's worth about $100 a ton. I can't sell it for that.
Yeah.
But if you have it analyzed and you price out the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and other elements,
Yeah.
it's worth over $100 a ton. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of value here. And we spread it as we make it. But there's so much here because experts have told me that when compost is fresh, like it's in the 6 weeks when it's first composted,
Yeah.
it's very bacterial.
That's right.
And if I'll just let it sit for a year, it'll become far more fungal, and fungal is better.
Yes.
And I have no idea whether that's right or not, but they said it with authority, and it costs me nothing to let it sit, so I do.
And this is where a lot of the bones and some of the stuff that you cannot use, even though you're trying to use as much as a whole animal as you can, there's some carcass that has to go.
It's incredible how much more of the carcass we use than we used to. When I first went in the business, we literally threw away some livers and some hearts and some really what is today highly marketable that we sell out of.
Right, because there's people who are really into the organ meats now.
But that's happened in the last 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
And back then, we just couldn't get rid of it. Now we sell out of all those cuts, the obscure organs, but what we can't sell is the eviscerate, the gut fill,
Yeah.
intestines. Some bones are not marketable. Some are. I mean,
Yeah.
we market the ones that are, but
Yeah.
some are not. Feathers. A lot. There's 9 tons a day of stuff that's just not marketable, and we bring it up here in a dump truck, dump it, covered up with a carbaceous material, usually peanut hulls or
Oh, that's
wood
peanut
chips.
hulls.
Yep.
Okay. That almost looks like my bark mulch that I would use,
we,
you know?
We use
Yeah.
bark mulch sometimes.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to not have to buy carbon.
Right.
We let people dump it here, and we've been able to get enough without having to buy it.
And what's the lasagna layer that you
Yeah.
need here? Like,
So what we do, what our guy does is he takes that big yellow loader, and he'll put a bed every day, leave a bed of carbaceous material, hulls or bark or whatever. Then my guy will come from the plant in a dump truck and dump the 9 tons of inedible product. And then this guy will come back with this loader and cover it up with carbaceous material.
but how much though?
18 to 24 inches.
Got it.
If you'll get it 18, 24 inches, you won't have those vultures.
Yeah.
Those vultures are here because we probably didn't do a good job yesterday covering it up.
Got it. It doesn't smell or anything here though. I mean, we're maybe not downwind of something, but
it doesn't today.
Yeah.
We try to do a very good job keeping it covered. We live here. That's my daughter's house right over there.
right.
So we try to do a good job. But in this case, yesterday, my guy that does that was on another project. So I knew he wasn't going to get it covered up.
Right.
And it's okay. There may be a day that the loaders is not working well. Something can happen, but we really try hard to cover it up every day. And then he takes the temperature. We got a thermometer with a 6-foot probe on it.
Right, those little long metal ones.
Yeah.
Now, are you still trying to get it to like 140 or 150, typically for?
There's a minimum temperature he's got to maintain. I don't remember what it is. I thought 150, but that might not be right. But you've got to do that so many days in a row, and after you do that, it's good.
Yeah.
So we'll let it sit and be static, and then when he gets ready to spread it, he spreads the oldest first. He'll use his loader again to freshen it up, and then we'll spread it in either that trailer, or I've got a truck that's sitting in another location now, and then we'll spread it in the pasture.
In the pasture, and that's how, I mean, that's like that's your fertilizer.
It's the only fertilizer.
Yeah. Between that and the poop and the pee.
And it's magic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wonderful stuff.
Yeah. It's pretty phenomenal.
I used to grind the bones. See those bones out there?
Yeah.
The bone grinder was a very expensive to keep operating machine. It's just a big heavy duty machine, pull a lot of power, and but I ground them. But when I started letting them sit for a year, I didn't need to grind them anymore. They're still intact bones, but they're very porous, and when you drive on them, they crush.
Crush like a shell or something.
Now, what was the idea behind grinding them? Like, why would you want to do that?
So they break down quicker. I was trying to compost in 6-8 weeks.
Yeah, and that would be like a quick compost, like a quick pickle. But then if you let them sit there for a year, then you don't need to actually go through the effort of grinding them because they're breaking down over a longer period of time.
Now that bone's there because something drug it out of the tile. But even in my pasture, you'll see bones.
Yeah.
But they easily fall apart.
Yeah. Well, thanks for showing this. This is like the behind the scenes that people don't often get a chance to see at the farm, but even though you're not using this waste because you say, well, it's an inedible and we can't use it for any kind of market right now, you are essentially reusing it again.
Oh, it's a very valuable part of our operation. When I buy these degraded soils, that's I could bring the soil back without it. It would take a lot longer and be a lot harder. It's like a quick fix.
Right. When you spread it, do you have to put moisture back in it, or are you spreading it kind of like as like the powdery, soil substance that it is?
I don't put moisture back in
Okay.
it. This is there actually may be a place for that, but we get 52 inches of rain a year, and it comes fairly equally throughout the season, so it's okay. People in really arid places, Australia, they do a lot of composting. They have to wet it. They have to have it. I've never intentionally pump water on it.
Great.
And it may not be optimal, but it's fine.
Does he turn this
Yeah.
regularly? Okay.
He turns it for 6 weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
After it composts, it sits like that.
Yeah.
And then grows grass on top of it.
Yeah.
But before he spreads it, he'll loosen it up.
Nice. Thank you so much. This has been such a darling tour, and
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate all the work that
Thank you.
you've been going
Thank
through.
you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay tuned here to Flock as we have more great conversations and informative videos lined up, and a host of renovation, landscaping, and garden projects happening on our own land in the Finger Lakes of New York. And if you like what White Oak Pastures is about, check them out at whiteoakpastures.com, and don't forget to grab your discount. 10% of our own Google AdSense revenues are reinvested back into community-based projects here in the Finger Lakes, and that's matched by our partners over at Espoma Organic as well. So that subscribe, membership, and your overall support truly matters. We'll see you in the next video.